Well, hello guys. Welcome to another episode of Kerbal Space Program. This is the first one for the new update 0.21. They have added a new feature, which is hiring new applicants for your available Kerbal list. So we just hired a few guys. We're going to leave those guys there for now. We, of course, are selecting them for the maximum amount of stupidity and the minimum amount of courage, of course. So we're going to use some of these applicants to actually crew our ship, to fill the crew of our ship. This is just a basic lunar lander that I built that I will showcase this episode in search of another update that they did in the game on the moon. So of course we'll have Siegfried actually lead us, since he has almost maximum stupidity and minimum courage. And let's see who else would be another good candidate. I think Billy Bobger Kerbin looks pretty promising right here. And then is there anyone else? Firkin Kerbin looks pretty good. He doesn't have any courage whatsoever, even though he's not necessarily the stupidest Kerbal that there is. He is much more promising than these guys who have, way too high of a balance of those quote unquote good traits. So we're gonna go with Siegfried, Billy Bobger, and Firkin as our crew for this ship. So it's a pretty basic ship. It's just asparagus staged, skipper engines with a big Rockomax 64 and then a 16 beneath that, all connected to a 32 with some landing legs, some lights, one docking port just to be safe. Sorry about that. My dogs were barking, so I cut literally 3 seconds out. What I was saying though is because now actually SAS and automatic targeting can actually use up your energy, so a lot of batteries and all that fun stuff. So other than that, yeah, pretty basic. So we're going to go ahead and launch this. And another new part about the 0.21 update that's pretty exciting is they kind of are revamping the in-flight options. So let me edit this real quick. For some reason I forgot to separate the last engine from the parachute here. So if you press escape to try to end the flight, there's no longer an in-flight option. There's just space enter and revert flight. And that will take you back either to when you were launching, which was, of course, in our case, 11 seconds ago, and revert to vehicle assembly, which was 12 seconds ago. Now, the interesting thing here is that I actually went to the moon with this particular thing to test it out for the episode, of course, and then came back, landed, and reverted back to the vehicle assembly building with no losses, no change to the game whatsoever. So you can, so long as you don't change which ship you're operating, you can actually do quite well. But anyways, without much further ado, let's go ahead and turn our lights on. It's really quite bright there. Sorry about that. But from this angle, I think it's pretty well lit, so kind of cool looking. We're going to put SAS on and take off. Now, sorry again if it's a little loud right here. I'll try to speak over these stupid engines. Unfortunately, I can't. I turned down the volume of the crash here down to 1%. So this is as quiet as I can get it to be in game if I record at the same time as I'm playing. If this is too loud, I apologize. I will try to figure out a workaround for that in the future. Unfortunately, we have 7 of the second largest engines in the game going at the same time. It's quite loud. So oh, that's much better. So apparently, oh wow, I feel kind of dumb. If you go further away, then I won't have to shout over the ridiculously loud engines, which is, I guess, acceptable. Although we can't see our beautiful ship flying, but that's okay. It's really not that beautiful of a ship. It's pretty utilitarian and not the most, necessarily the most creative thing we have ever made. So just losing the first stage. For those of you who aren't familiar with the idea of asparagus staging, the idea basically is instead of having all 7 rockets fire the entire time and then drop the entire stage all at once, break it up into several mini stages. The idea being that you can use up the two fuel tanks as well as the engines, drop those, and you don't have to carry all that extra weight up even higher into the atmosphere, so you're not fighting gravity as much. And in reality, losing a couple engines isn't going to, so long as you have enough lift to continue propelling your craft upwards, you don't need extra engines. Extra engines don't give you better efficiency. They just give you better, what's the word? Better thrust, better propulsion. So you'll be pushing, faster, more acceleration per second, but you're not getting, you're carrying all that dead weight around. So this minimizes how much dead weight you have to carry around, which I think is a very admirable goal in the game. So the way I tend to do things in the game, and this is probably not the best way to do it, but this is how I do it. I do my gravity turn at about 11 kilometers. Basically, I go from heading straight north to heading about 90 degrees, and there we go. And that always makes me nervous when we drop those things off right after turning, because I don't want them to hit us. Obviously, if those things were to collide with our ship, it'd be quite bad. Let me zoom out a bit more to make sure that we don't lose too much volume there. Now, the other thing is you have to adjust this based on what ship you have. So normally I go straight to 90, and I forgot this when I was talking, but what I do with this particular ship, at least what I've decided I ought to do with the ship, is instead of going straight to 90, I go a little bit more vertical than that, just because the thrust to weight ratio on this thing isn't quite as it's not as intense as some of my other ships, and as such it can't maintain as much vertical propulsion from just going at that 45 degree angle from the ground, that is, which is at 90 degrees on this little map here. Anyways, it's pretty basic here. Unfortunately, I can't fast forward through this part of takeoff, mostly because using physical time acceleration in this game does have some consequences for the physics of the game, especially on larger crafts, so like this launcher here. So that's not the best thing to do. You don't want the ship to blow up as you're trying to launch it. So once we cross out of this, kind of aqua-colored atmosphere indicator here, we'll probably be able to go a little bit more flat, though. The main concern simply being that we don't want to go so flat that we don't make orbit. Now this is usually about this time. We still have a little bit of fuel left there, so we're going to go to the map view and keep our resources out. For some reason, Lathe came up as our target. And we're going to look at our Apoasis. By the way, yes, I know my orbit is very busy. I was pleasantly surprised that everything actually managed to stay over from the previous version of the game. So now what we're trying to do here is only get our Apoasis up to about 70. But I am going to zoom in just a little bit right now because I know this is about to run out in a second here. So we might overshoot what I'm trying to get the Apoasis, which is just the zenith of your climb, for those of you who haven't heard this terminology before. Basically the idea could go out to 80, which is not bad. The idea being that, any energy that you're pushing out there, and we're going to just cut engines until we get closer up to here. Okay. Let's get up to, not all the way up there. Again, we don't want to cause ourselves any problems. Now we are kind of flipping around a little bit, so we're about a minute off from the Apoasis, and you can hear the music in the background. Again, hopefully the audio balance is acceptable for you guys. It's not the it's just a hard thing. If you look on the settings, though, actually, well, the settings are in the main part of the game, but unfortunately parts of the game are just louder than others, so this music is pretty loud, at least based on the headphone settings I have, and I put my headphone settings to kind of the optimal setting for me recording, that way that I hear things about how they'll sound in the final recording. So we're gonna, and you see right here, because we're going almost perpendicular to the ground, we're not really increasing our height of our Apoasis so much as we're spreading these landing spots out a little bit. Now I'm going to tilt up just slightly to help push this Apoasis a little bit away. Again, if you go up and towards it as opposed to directly towards it, you can kind of counterbalance the effects of gravity just a little bit. So you see how the 15-second countdown paused, and now it's going up to 16, and so on. So we're only very gently raising the Apoasis here, but in the process of doing that, we're actually getting quite a bit more horizontal, energy, velocity. I mean, I guess it's technically kinetic energy, but velocity is really the the term I was looking for. And that'll help us achieve actually a stable orbit outside of the atmosphere. So again, we're trying to make basically low Kerbin orbit. Probably, I mean, if you're above 80 kilometers, you're pretty safe, but if you're between 80 and 100, I'd count that as being fairly low orbit. And that's actually where you want to go before you try to head to the moon, which is, again, our goal for this episode, to land on the moon and explore the new terrain. It's one of the updates they have for this. So as you can see now, we finally got enough speed. So that's going up to 110. That's a bit higher than we want. 50, though, is actually still inside of the atmosphere. So we're just going to, again, fast forward time until we get about to our Ape Oasis. And again, if I'm mispronouncing any of these words, I apologize. I know the terms, but I don't always know exactly how they ought to be said. So I don't pretend to be an expert on these things. I just like this game. But let's see if we can't achieve a slightly higher orbit here. Okay, and that'll do. So actually this is a bit higher orbit than we really need even. But we do have a stable orbit here. We're not going to crash back down to the atmosphere. And we have quite a bit of fuel left in our launch stages. So we're going to use this to take us to the moon. I'm going to pause the episode real quick, though, to double check the audio quality of the episode. Again, I don't want to be yelling or inaudible. And I don't want the music or sound effects to be overwhelming. So I'll be right back. All right, thanks, guys. All right, guys, I am back. I apologize for the brief break there. I also apologize for shouting when the ship took off. It was much louder on my headphones than it was on the recording, so sorry about that. So when you want to get out to the moon in this game, and I can do maybe a tutorial on this one day too, although I don't pretend to be an expert again, you want to add a maneuver node basically that lets you know how far out you'll have to get to the what's it called? To the same sort of height as this ship, not ship. Wow, sorry, moon. As this planetary body, I guess. So, and then you also want to kind of, look around and see where can you get a capture. And for this mission, the capture doesn't matter that much. Sometimes if you're trying to be really precise and stuff, you can do all sorts of crazy tricks. But basically, for this, we're just going to get, a capture like that. That indicates where we'll get near the moon. And then we're going to go basically target towards this little blue reticle here. The purple one indicates where our target is in relation to us, whereas the blue one indicates the direction of our burn at the node. However, we actually have to wait till the time of the node, obviously, because if we're not pointing in the right direction at the right time, then we might be burning, in a counterproductive method. So, just to speed up time here a little bit until we can get to the node, and I think I'm going the maximum speed, of time acceleration that I can do. Speaking of acceleration, also when I listened to the earlier part of the episode, I misspoke. I said acceleration per second, which is redundant because acceleration is change in velocity per second. So I apologize for that very small technical error, but I'm sure at least someone who's watching this was probably annoyed by it. I was. So, in fact, I know that at least one person was. Now, the problem with this is you can't know how long the burn's going to be until you've actually used your engine. So this says about a minute and 4 or 5 seconds. Now, the way I always do this, and I've heard different people say different things, I don't know who's right, but the way I always do this is wait until the node is, like if it's a minute, then I wait until the node's 30 seconds away to start burning. Oh, the ship was still throttled up. I apologize for that. So get down to 30 seconds in this case. I'm adding an extra second for the time it takes to get your ship up to full acceleration. And I added a few extra seconds just because I was impatient as well. And so at this point, you don't have to follow this thing all the way down. You kind of want to keep, this will shift a little bit if you're not quite exactly on it. and you'll just follow this bar as it gets depleted, and you'll use quite a bit of fuel in the process. I mean, this is 600 meters per second, which is just the change in velocity that you have to achieve to go from this blue orbit to this dotted, potential orbit. Again, you don't have to do it exactly like the node that you put in there says, so long as you get this apoasis up far enough and are burning at about the right time, you should still get this capture, and it will show you once you've achieved the capture. You can cut your engines even if you haven't burned exactly how much it says to do. So we're going to go ahead and try and get that. And there are, there's some fine details about like which way you want to catch the moon and prograde, retrograde, all this fancy stuff, but I'm not going to bother with any of that for this episode. This is a pretty, quick and dirty, just getting there kind of thing. One thing you do want to do though is adjust your ascending and descending nodes. So, what you want to do is go basically parallel to the equator of the celestial body that you're heading towards. And if you're not quite right on it, you're going to have a ascending or descending node. Basically has to do with how far off you are from the correct orientation. So now I got down to 0 there with this future node. So we're going to go ahead and line up this next node. And then we will, of course, wait for the next node, which you notice is in an hour and 11 minutes. So I'm very thankful that we have actually have time acceleration here. It would be quite annoying if we did not. And again, these scales that they have on these planets is much smaller than the scales for our actual solar system. So doing all of this stuff in real life, of course, you don't have time acceleration, and it would take much longer. So gotta give credit to astronauts and all of that stuff. It's pretty incredible. And this game definitely, if you play it, it gives you a much better appreciation for just how incredibly difficult even the simplest things are to accomplish, at least in my opinion. So let's go ahead and get close to this node. We don't have an estimated burn, but you notice it's only 11.6 meters per second change that we're trying to achieve here. That's very little, and at this point, how exactly spot on we get isn't a huge deal. So let's remove the node. And we don't have an ascending descending node to compare to anymore, because we're not part of an orbit. We're in an orbit that's going to end, unfortunately. So we can't tell if we are elliptical now or not. That's one thing I didn't think about. But let's go ahead and again fast forward to the moon encounter. And you notice that we are on I believe on a collision. No, we're not. We're on a low orbit kind of course there. So we have a couple of satellites in the vicinity there. So we're coming forward this way, but now we're being caught by gravity. I think that's going to slow us down. I forget if that slows us down or speeds us up again. I'm not the best with these things, but we're going to get down to this lowest point here, and then we're going to add a maneuver to slow down, basically to a nice sort of semi-spherical orbit. Now you don't have to do that to land on the moon, but I'm going to do that because we want to kind of survey the surface of the moon. I want you guys to be able to get a good look at it. So we're going to get a little bit closer to this. Oh, okay. And that's one thing to be very careful of in this game, is not time accelerating too fast, because it can really get out of hand very quickly. So I'm going to, be pretty cautious here, and I'm not going to burn exactly at the spot, but I was wondering why it wasn't being responsive here, but it's because I'm still fast forwarding. So we're near the moon now, so actually I'll get a good look at it. I know the map view can be kind of boring. So we have, Kerbal back there, and we have the moon, or in this game it's M, umlaut N instead of moon, the way we spell it. But I think that's close enough for me to call it moon. I'm not sure if there's a special pronunciation there going forward with that umlaut in there. So again, we see a little bit of fuel here, so we're going to use that to speed down our orbit some, if I can get to a retrograde orientation here. And once I get there, I can very gently, probably, excuse me, probably very gently fast forward to and patiently fast forward to get a little bit closer to the node. And that will do. So we're going to go ahead and kind of start burning. And I'm not using full throttle here just because I kind of started burning a little early. So I was going to use that for a second to slow down. And so in this case we didn't burn exactly on the node again, but I think it's good enough for what we're trying to accomplish here. I mean, even right now I'm doing a slight additional burn to kill that last little bit of velocity. You can see how that's going away from me because I'm not firing directly on it. But you know, you'll notice we between the dotted one and the actual one, the difference is really minimal. I mean, you know, a kilometer maybe or two of height difference. So now we have you know, a nice equatorial orbit around the moon. So here's I'm going to time warp this just so you guys can kind of get a good look at the moon and see how much, if you've seen the moon in the past, you'll notice that the appearance is vastly different than it was in the past. It's much more, you know, pocketed with all of these craters that have been procedurally generated, including this giant crater in the middle there. So it really looks cool with craters within craters and all this procedurally generated terrain here. So I think that's very cool, a very nice addition to the game they have here. That being said, though, I do want to end this episode at some point in time. So we're going to go another orbit around, and when we get towards the beginning of the dark part of the moon, we're going to start slowing down here. I think if I'm correct about this, that should mean that we'll land either towards the end of the darkness or maybe, well, I guess it depends how quickly we slow down. But landing in the dark part of the moon will be fine for us because the plus side of that is we have all these lights on our ship. So let's go ahead and we're going to kill our momentum again just by going retrograde. You can see our orbital speed is dropping vastly, and if you look on the map, what that indicates is that we're killing all of that again side to side momentum, and as such we're kind of bringing everything into the same point where we're going to try to land right about here. Now you notice it stopped going because our what's it called, this part, our last stage is dead. So we're going to go ahead and drop that and then start up our engine and kind of wreak some havoc there. You can see our lights have pretty good coverage there. So we're going to go ahead and see if we're going to land there. Okay, that's not quite equatorial, but that's good enough. And we're going to just kind of fast forward to a bit lower. Again, you don't really need to start burning, in my opinion, until you're about, I'd say 40 kilometers up. When I landed on the moon last time, I spent a lot of fuel just slowing down, and I was thinking I was at like 60 or 70 kilometers, and I slowed down to 100 meters per second. It was just a waste of fuel, basically. So actually, I'm going to go even a bit lower. This is risky, but I'm going to go down to 35 kilometers and start my burn to slow down. It's risky for my personality. I usually am really cautious, but in reality, it's just probably not that risky, because even though the surface of the moon isn't exactly sea level, and so this estimate might be a slight overestimate, it's not going to be a huge overestimate. And killing the little 300, 400 meters per second speed that we have right now is really nothing. I mean, we're already halfway down to our base speed, so we're going to land on the dark side of the moon, it looks like. As you can see, a nice little sunset here, very nice. And I don't know, is that part of our, that might be part of our ship, or that might be one of the satellites. That's a basic satellite. So we have friends up here. So we'll just watch this sunset as, oh, well, crap. Saying that target kind of skewed our view of orbital speed. So as much as I'd like to watch the sunset and all of that, and watch our debris plummet to the ground, I do think that we need to focus more on not dying. Though we have a little ways to go. So okay, we can watch the beautiful sunset. So we're going to speed up again down to about, 10 kilometers. And this is where I start to get nervous. Unfortunately, the lighting, as good as it is, doesn't really kick in until you get close to the ground. So this is probably me being overcautious, but I'm going to slow down to about 100 meters per second. Because that way, you know, if we all of a sudden notice, wow, we're getting way too close to the ground, way faster than we thought we were, well, it's not like we won't be able to respond to stuff. So at least the way I tend to do landing on the moon is, again, probably overcautious, but basically just tap the engine every time I get close to 150 down to 100 until I start feeling like I'm really close to the surface. When I start seeing boulders and stuff. The problem with landing at night, of course, even when you have lights, is you can't see everything clearly. I think I'm starting to see boulders though, so I'm going to slow down to about 50 meters per second. I'm going to go ahead and drop down the landing gear as well. Okay. And we keep our engines up just enough to kill, you know, we're barely shooting anything out, but we're kind of maintaining our speed here. And it's probably not the most efficient, actually I'm certain that it's not the most efficient way of doing things, but it makes me feel safer, especially since I had a misadventure earlier where I was heading down towards a mountain, and okay, on Kerbal I was testing everything out, and I was sort of heading. Okay, so we are very close to the ground. We're just heading laterally too much. So we're going to kind of slow down lateral. You can see our retrograde kind of thing here. So we're actually going up, it seems. So that's not what we want to do. About 10 meters per second one way isn't too bad. So we're going to very gently get our speed. We're going up now, and that'll slow us down. We'll start going back down. That was me not paying close enough attention. Okay, and we're going to be coming in at very low speeds. It looks like that's where we're heading though. This doesn't look level. In fact, I'm pretty sure this ground is not level, which is, you know, one of the downsides of having the craters. It's also part of the reason why I'm coming in so ridiculously slow. So long as we have at least half of the fuel in our tank, we have more than enough to get home. So we should be fine in terms of that. It can be disorienting being here in space in the Kerbal system. So it looks like there's a big hill here. This is probably an awful place to pick to land, because it looked like this is much more steep than I had initially even recognized. And so this might be a crash landing. Yeah, that's going to be a crash. Oh, no, sort of a crash. So we lost a couple of our generators there. It's not great. Okay, we're losing all of our generators there. Did we keep any of them? Okay. So we're going to turn this... Okay, yeah, we lost our last generator here. So we are losing a lot of non-essential but kind of nice to have parts. Okay, so this is not good. That's really not good. Okay, so in all fairness, this actually went without a hitch last time I came here. So we're just kind of tumbling down into the crater here. I'm really worried. So long as we don't blow up the actual ship itself, we can always rescue these guys, which might be what I do next episode. I'm sorry about clipping through the world there. So we are... this is absolutely scaring me. Okay. So we're trying to slow down. We're going pretty darn fast. 20 meters per second on the ground is not optimal. Starting to slow down here. I think we literally lost every single part of the ship. But so long as the crew capsule stays together, we should live. It's nice being able to see Kerbal sort of through the moon like that. Okay, and we're... Wow. Well, that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. Although I guess it's a good setup for next episode if we ever come to a halt here. And I would time... I'm not even going to dare... You see a little crack in the universe there? That's not good. Well, a big crack in the universe there. So we are, albeit quite slowly, starting to slow down. Is this like a glitch or something? So we're just not stopping. Okay, come on. So that slowed us down. It says that we are... Oh, it's giving us orbital speeds. That's also probably part of why I crashed. I didn't change the surface speeds, I don't think, I guess. So, well, here we are, guys. Mission accomplished. I mean, we had an awesome team doing it, so I think that the best person, of course, to lead the expedition onto the surface is good old Siegfried here. Firkin's in there still. You can see all of the debris from our ship just scattered about. Let's see if we can switch to any of it. Yeah, so we have, what is this, several pieces of our ship just laying about. Well, guys, thank you for watching this episode. I apologize for the epic levels of failures, but we did get to the moon, and we got to, take a good look at the awesome scenery. So next episode, I think we'll send out a rescue mission for these guys. I would like to know some feedback. If there's anything you guys want to see differently, let me know. And also let me know in future episodes. Next episode will be in the same Kerbal universe that I've been playing in to rescue these guys. But after that mission, I want to know, do you guys want to start out in a fresh Kerbal universe, or would you rather keep going in this busy, crowded one that I have had a lot of stuff going on in? Would be something I would really like to know. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one. Later.